From the banks of the Colorado River in Lake Mead to the homes and businesses in Southern Nevada, welcome to Water Smarts, the podcast pumping from the heart of Las Vegas, where we engage with the experts who keep the water flowing throughout Southern Nevada. I'm Bronson Mack.
And I'm Crystal Zuelke. From how we treat it, deliver it, use it, protect it, and conserve it, the Water Smarts podcast is all about water in Southern Nevada. We hope to make you a little smarter about the one thing that keeps us all connected: water.
Hey, Crystal, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty well, Bronson. It's spring. Technically, is it spring? Just about.
Well, listen, at least as far as watering restrictions goes, it is spring. You can now water up to 3 days a week from March 1st until April 30th. We do encourage you, however, to ramp up that watering. You don't have to go out and water 3 days a week right away. But yeah, you're right. As far as watering restrictions goes, it's springtime.
Well, with spring, I've noticed, getting outside just a little bit more. Temperatures are warming up just ever so slightly. There's been a lot of activity in my neighborhood. I'm starting to see more HOA communities replace their grass with water smart landscaping.
Good.
And that's perfect because, we're here today. We're going to talk a little bit more about AB356, which is the new law that will prevent the use of irrigating grass by the year of 2027, and the role that HOAs and businesses play in helping our community save our resources.
Yeah, you are absolutely right with that new law that had been passed by the Nevada legislature in 2021. It provided 5 years for HOAs, businesses, and multifamily residential. Those are condos and apartment complexes to replace their non-functional grass. That grass that nobody is walking on unless they're pushing a lawnmower. Nobody is doing any kind of recreation on that grass. 5 years to get that grass replaced. And of course, the Southern Nevada Water Authority provides a $3 per square foot rebate. And today, to help explain how your homeowners association can meet all of the requirements of the new state law that prohibits non-functional decorative grass, we have with us Patrick Watson, who leads the Southern Nevada Water Authority's Conservation Services team, and Hillary Francis, Conservation's Program Coordinator. Both Patrick and Hillary play a key role in helping members of our community, and especially HOAs and businesses, through the Water Smart Landscape Rebate process. Patrick and Hillary, welcome to the Water Smarts podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, Patrick, we are so glad to have you back. Hillary, so glad that you can join us here as well. What's been going on here in Southern Nevada with businesses and HOAs and multifamily residential properties taking out that non-functional decorative grass? That grass that nobody is using, it's only used for aesthetics, has been really instrumental in helping drive down our water use over this past year. We have more work to do. We still have a lot of this grass out there. So, Patrick, before we talk about HOAs and the challenges they face in making major landscape changes, can you just give our listeners some background on why HOAs need to remove decorative, non-functional grass from their properties? Because it's not just about water waste, but it's also about state law.
That's right, Bronson. Back in 2021, the state legislature passed Assembly Bill 356. And what that bill actually just says is it's going to prohibit the use of Colorado River water on non-functional turf starting January 1st, 2027. And that's grass that's found at the entries and the monuments of HOAs. It's along streets, it's in parking lots. And HOAs haven't been singled out by the bill. It also applies to businesses, government agencies, and multifamily properties. And non-functional turf, the definition was defined by a citizens advisory committee, and they determined what was functional, what was non-functional, and what those definitions are. And the committee was made up of people throughout the community and business leaders, HOA representatives, and the green industry. So we got this direction from the community, and that's what we're doing right now is we're working on getting that out. To help with that, we offer incentives as part of the resources, and that's $3 per square foot for the first 10,000 square feet and $1.50 after that with no cap. So once they get started, they can just keep on going. I will mention that non-functional turf, if we can get it all out, it represents nearly 5 billion gallons of water that we're going to save annually. And that'll help us navigate through the shortage conditions on the Colorado River going forward.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up those shortage conditions because you're absolutely right. Because water levels in Lake Mead have declined to where they are due to ongoing drought conditions, those shortage conditions have reduced the amount of water that Southern Nevada and Arizona can take from Lake Mead. And it's because of conservation that we've been able to manage through those shortages. And conservation is going to continue to be a key for us to be able to maintain that balance. So I'm really glad that you brought that up.
It's huge for our community, and we're going to have to take this haircut. It's federally mandated, and this will help us get through this.
Hillary, Patrick just mentioned the SNWA's Water Smart Landscapes Rebate Program, and that program has actually been around for more than 20 years now, long before AB 356 became law. And we've had a lot of residents and businesses participate in that program over that time. But have you seen an increase in applications since that became law? And what is SNWA doing to make sure businesses are in compliance with this new law by the 2027 deadline?
Yeah, Crystal, we've seen a really significant increase in applications, particularly over the last 6 months to a year. Applications have more than doubled compared to past years before AB 356. We have more than 3,000 HOAs in the Valley, and those range from small HOAs or small complexes all the way up to the very, very large master planned communities. And a lot of community managers have been reaching out to us to figure out what they need to do to meet the requirements of AB 356, and then what they need to do to bring their properties up into compliance with the law. And so we're also trying to reach out to all of those HOAs in the Valley. But there's a lot of challenges working with HOAs that don't always come into play with other types of properties like businesses and commercial properties.
I would expect that with businesses, there's probably a property owner or a business manager, a building manager, somebody that you can contact and work directly with when it comes to taking out this grass. But I also have to assume that that's probably not always the case with the homeowners association. You know, it seems like with an HOA and being somebody who's involved with his own HOA, you've got elected board members, you've got a property manager or a management company. So, Patrick, who was your team working with when it comes to HOA communities to help educate them on the new law, the requirement that this non-functional grass be removed, and kind of helping them through the entire landscape upgrade process?
Well, it's the community manager. They are the key. If you think about it, one community manager may manage up to 10 properties. So if you can get to one, you can get to 10, at least 10. The community managers, they work with the HOA boards and the people in the residents in the HOA to keep the property maintained and looking good. So we found that the decision-making process for HOAs sometimes to do a conversion can take up to a year, maybe 2 years, depending on how large the HOA is. And they get very complicated very fast. So some of the issues that the community managers and boards deal with are first and foremost is funding. How do we fund these projects? Can our reserve accounts fund them? Or do we need to assess residents extra monies to pay for the projects? Can it be phased so it fits within the budget? And then one of the biggest challenges we have is the boards will turn over. So we'll get a whole new board and some of them might be opposed to what they're doing or have more questions, and it kind of delays the process. Community managers are certainly the key to this whole process. And so what we do is we try to work with them to make them understand and give them a clear understanding of our water resource picture and what the issues are and why we're asking them to remove non-functional turf. The other property class that we have a lot of challenges with are apartment complexes. They're a lot more challenging because the owners might not live here. They might have an on-site manager, but they're corporate run and that corporation might be on the East Coast where there's plenty of water. They don't have a clear understanding of why we're doing things either. So we have to work with that.
I think it's interesting that you talked about the individual HOA boards. Because you're right, almost every year you could see turnover happen on those boards, and you may have somebody who has a differing opinion. So you might have an HOA that's walking down the path and getting all of their ducks in a row to begin a conversion, and then there's an election, and there's a new board or a couple new board members that come on and maybe have some stronger opinions or feelings about what the HOA was planning to do. So those kinds of delays then ultimately can hold up that HOA moving forward. Hillary, we just heard a little bit about funding and this board turnover that Patrick just referenced. Can you just talk about maybe some of the other challenges that you might face when you're working with an HOA, just to help our audience anticipate what might come so that they can maybe avoid those challenges themselves?
Yeah, sure. So, one of the challenges that we do run across is some communities will have a lot of rental units in the community. And so you might have a board member who owns a property in that community, but doesn't live there. And likewise, if you have a lot of owners that don't live in the community, they may not have an interest in upgrading and investing in a major landscape project. And another challenge that we have is just awareness. The average homeowner may not be aware of AB 356. And may not be aware of its requirements. And that goes for board members as well. So for the most part, that's why we have been reaching out to community managers, because as Patrick mentioned, the community managers have the ability to reach out and communicate to their boards to steer them in the correct direction. The board members are ultimately the group that are making the decisions on behalf of the HOA. But community managers can help steer those decisions. That's why we've really had a lot of outreach towards the community manager group. The main hurdle, though, that most HOAs are running into right now is with funding, is figuring out how they're going to pay for these large landscape projects. And so that's why we really can't stress enough that these HOAs should reach out to us to start the process for applying to the Water Smart Landscapes Program rebate, to start planning their landscape projects now before we start getting closer to that 2027 deadline.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, because while that seems like 3 years away, because it is, a lot of these communities and HOAs have to budget. And so being able to phase in projects and plan now to do a little bit over time to be able to meet the requirements 3 years from now. So really important to note there. Hillary, just following up a little bit more on this, when you meet with an HOA board and its management team, are you finding the rebate helps to incentivize them to move forward on the landscape conversions? And, what are the things that you're saying to them to convince them to start the process now, as you mentioned, and not wait until the end of 2026?
Yeah, the rebate is a huge driver of a lot of these landscape conversions, and it's probably the biggest point of assistance that these HOAs can have for getting these projects done. One of the big topics of discussion that I often run into with HOA boards and community managers is the rebate rate structure itself. There's a lot of rumors going on out in the community about the rebate amount is going to change, if it's going to go up, if the rebate's going to reduce. The rebate is likely to reduce as we get closer to the 2027 deadline. How that's going to work, we don't quite know yet, but the main point that I'm trying to get across is that you've got to start planning sooner rather than later. If you wait until the very last minute, these HOAs and other large properties, they run the risk of running into issues like a reduced rebate amount. There's the risk that there's going to be shortages with landscape contractors, being able to contract with a landscape contractor to get the work done before the deadline. You run the risk that there could be issues with not getting the plants that you want. So plants, trees, even irrigation components may not be available when you need it, because everybody could be waiting until that very last minute to do these landscape projects. And also, with a demand in landscape contractors, you run the risk that they may increase their rates, the amount that they charge per square foot to do these landscape conversions. So the main point that we're trying to get across is that you need to start planning now. You've got to start planning on your budget. You've got to start thinking about going out to these landscape contractors. You need to get multiple bids for multiple contractors. And so cannot stress it enough. Get in contact with us at SNWA to help you with that process. That's what we're here for, is to help you with the process, to get it started, to get it done sooner rather than later.
Hillary, you also noted some very important points that make HOAs, rather unique. I mean, HOAs are different from single-family homeowners. They're different from businesses. In my experience in being on the landscape committee for my particular HOA, we started our process in April of 2022. It is now March of 2023, and just this week, our landscape contractor was out there taking out the grass. It took us a year in order to get this done. The SNWA and the resources that were provided were really, really helpful. The submittal process for the Water Smart Landscape program was super easy. And Hillary, you actually responded to many of my questions that I had directly with regards to our HOA. And we had about 18,000, little over 18,000 square feet of grass that we are removing. And when we run those numbers, I mean, we're looking at a rebate somewhere in the area of about $38,000 to $40,000 on a project that's going to be coming in right under $100,000 total. So we've got a little less than 50% of the cost of this project paid for through the Water Smart Landscape rebate program. And then, of course, one of the other benefits that we're going to realize here is a savings on our water bill. We're going to be using less water, and so our water bill inherently is going to be reduced.
You're right, Bronson. Water rates aren't going down. Keep in mind, water rates are likely to increase throughout the valley over the next few years. And grass uses 73 gallons per square foot, where drip irrigated Water Smart Landscapes only uses 17 gallons per square foot. So that's a 55 gallon per square foot savings. And that equates to dollar savings. So converting your grass to Water Smart Landscapes is a good way to stay ahead of the costs as they go up.
That is a great point. Now, you just mentioned 73 gallons per square foot of grass. And if we take that 73 gallons and put that on one single square foot of grass, that is a column of water that's about 10 feet tall, right?
Yes. Think about it. There are some rainforests that get about 80 inches of water a year. So a 10-foot column of water, that's more than some rainforests get. That's a lot of water.
That's the height of an NBA basketball hoop. As you drive through this community, as you see those little patches of grass, keep in mind that every single patch of grass in this valley to stay green year-round is getting 10 feet of water on it. We don't even have swimming pools in Las Vegas that are 10 feet deep. So you bring up a good point there. And then that water-efficient landscaping, that drip-irrigated landscape, uses about 17 gallons per square foot. That's less than 3 feet of water. So just on a mental image standpoint, you can see the significant difference between the water hog that is grass and the more efficient and actually more beautiful drip-irrigated water-efficient landscaping.
Correct.
So Patrick, Hillary mentioned some of the risks of waiting to remove the grass and replace it with Water Smart Landscaping. What are the consequences if HOAs, businesses don't meet that deadline?
Well, as I mentioned before, January 1st, 2027, the use of Colorado River water on non-functional turf will be prohibited. The consequences are that you won't be able to water this grass. It saves nearly 5 billion gallons annually, and we need that water to bolster our lake levels. So the consequences are being decided now as we speak. We don't have details on that as of yet, but they're forthcoming.
Patrick, can you just talk a little bit about the process? We've got the rebate, $3 a square foot. Give our listeners a snapshot of the process.
So the first thing to do is go to snwa.com. Everything you're going to need is right there. The plant search tool, the WaterSmart contractor list, tree care information. But there's also an online application. So you can start with that. HOAs, you need to make sure you read all the requirements. Go down because there's some things that are required for HOAs that you'll need beforehand before you start the online application. Remember, don't kill or remove any grass until we've sent staff out to measure, take photographs, and verify that the grass is there. The other thing we can help you with is if a community manager and board, they need help determining what's functional and non-functional, that's going to be critical because we don't want anybody to do a conversion and then come back and go, hey, you know what? You should have taken a little more out. We don't want that to happen. So we want to work with the board and the community manager, and we can provide maps to classify the turf. We can classify it functional, non-functional, so things like that. And those maps help you with budgeting and throughout the planning process. So once we get the pre-site done, we'll give you the okay to start the project, and you'll have 18 months to complete the project. Once it's complete, we'll come back out, we'll verify that you removed the turf, and then we'll send you a conservation easement. And then once that's signed, we will send you a check. So it's very simple. And with HOAs, Hillary and her staff are here to really provide guidance and advice. You can imagine she's seen a lot through the years, so she's a good resource, and do not hesitate to call and ask questions.
Yeah, and the main thing is, as I mentioned before, is really we encourage you to start the process of planning and getting in contact with SNWA now rather than later, especially with HOAs. With HOAs, there's so many different decision makers and stakeholders within those groups. You've got the board members, the residents themselves, and the community managers. And so it's really important to make sure that everybody's on the same page and everybody knows, what needs to be done to be compliant with AB 356. Still a lot of confusion out there as far as what is functional, what's recreational, what's non-functional, and what isn't. So even if your HOA is not ready to get started on a landscape project now, even if you know you need time to plan, use that planning time to contact us. Let us go out to your property, let us measure all of the grass and determine what constitutes functional versus non-functional grass. As Patrick mentioned, we can create maps for you. These maps are customized according to your landscape. They have the grass classified according to what is non-functional and what is functional. And those maps can help you determine exactly what needs to be done. You can provide those maps to your landscape contractor to help them with providing bids for you. We do have resources for you, and we can't stress enough, reach out to us sooner rather than later because we are absolutely here to help you.
And that's excellent advice, is to start planning now. So there's a lot of different challenges and probably excuses that different people come up with when it comes to taking out the grass and replacing it with water smart landscaping. We've talked about recreational uses, functional uses. A lot of the things that we hear are around pets. I have a dog. I take him for walks. We have a backyard that has artificial turf with rock and plants. I know where he goes. He goes on the rocks. He doesn't have a problem with that. But I know that that's probably something that you hear a lot of. What is the issue with that, and how do you address that when you hear that?
Yeah, so I'm not going to name any names, but we've had quite a few HOAs complain that taking out grass in certain areas are going to, affect the ability for dogs to relieve themselves. It's probably been one of the most contentious topics of the AB 356 requirements for functional versus non-functional. And one of the requirements for functional grass in an HOA is that it needs to have a recreational amenity or facility for use by the residents. Some HOA boards have come to us and said, well, I'll just put a doggy bag station in the grass area, and that makes it functional because that makes it a dog park or a functional amenity. And so I think the thing to understand is that, yes, we love our pets, and yes, our dogs are important to us. But at the same time, we have to try to understand that the functional versus non-functional really applies to human use, not necessarily animals. We have to think about our water supply as a community. And frankly, the human consumption of water in the valley just has to take priority, unfortunately, over where dogs go to do their business.
So you're telling me that just putting up a doggy bag on my patch of grass is not enough to make it functional, right? We need to make sure that it's functional for recreational purposes. And in fact, there's a whole set of definitions for what is functional and non-functional on snwa.com. Isn't that right, Hillary?
Yes. So you can read more about what constitutes functional grass, the criteria that must be met in order for those areas to remain as functional grass.
Patrick, let's talk about maybe some of the larger HOAs. We have some really big HOAs. You got Summerlin, you got Anthem, you got like Aliante, right? So you've got some of these that are large community associations. Can you give us some examples of some that you've worked with and what they've been doing as far as turf conversions?
Sure. So just to start out with, Summerlin Master Association, and you can imagine the size of that HOA, they've been working very closely with us. They asked us for classification maps, and we map all of Summerlin for their Master Association. So they've been busy working on their non-functional turf. Another one is Anthem Country Club, their master association, Anthem down in Henderson. When they first met with us, I think they were a little bit apprehensive. I think in their minds, they thought, oh my gosh, they're going to have to just strip everything out and no turf anywhere. And that's not the case. Not every bit of grass is non-functional. There is grass that provides a recreational benefit to communities. So keep in mind, when we meet with these communities, they're very passionate about where they live. We all are. And we need to keep that in mind. And Anthem was no exception. They were concerned But after Hillary met with them several times and we went through their maps and showed them what was functional and non-functional, they became a very good partner and worked with us on that. And they've been doing other things too. The golf course just completed a conversion of their functional grass to warm season grass. It was cool season. It was mainly ryegrass, and they converted it to Bermuda grass, a warm season species. So their functional grass will be even more efficient. And that's what we want. And we offer that to not just golf courses, but to all HOAs. Any functional turf that you may have, if it's fescue or ryegrass, we'll help convert it to a warm season grass. And that just conserves even more water.
That is great, because that water efficiency bus is leaving the station, and we need all of the HOAs, all of the businesses that have non-functional grass. We need you all on board. Hillary, where should our listeners go to find out more about AB 356, the Water Smart Landscape Rebate Program, and what that process is? What resources, where should they go?
Your first stop should be snwa.com. You can go to the drop-down menu, find rebates, coupons, and programs, and that link will take you to all the information that you need. That'll list all of our rebates that we offer, including those that are targeted specifically towards HOAs and businesses. You can apply for the rebate program online. You can read all of the program requirements, get all the details that you need to get started and to move forward with your project. For HOAs and businesses, we also have a phone number that you can call to contact us directly, 702-862-3740. That phone number will come directly to our staff to help you out there. We're always willing to come and speak with your board in person in your community about the rebate program, about water conservation in general, and the new law, AB 356 requirements. That can be an informal on-site meeting all the way up to a PowerPoint presentation in front of your entire community if needed. Reach out to us and we can help you get started.
Great information there. We will put that phone number in the show notes so that it is available. Go to snwa.com, get that process started. You can get the vast majority of your questions answered there. You can also contact the Southern Nevada Water Authority through its Contact Us forms. Hillary and Patrick, thank you for all that you are doing to help HOAs, businesses, and multifamily residential properties get on that conservation bus and get ready to replace that non-functional grass so that they are in compliance with Nevada law by the beginning of 2027. And thanks so much for joining us here on the Water Smarts podcast.
Well, thanks for having us.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Well, Crystal, I think we got a lot of good information out there for HOAs and non-functional grass. I mean, do you have non-functional grass in your HOA?
I do. We have like a lot of communities. We have where you come through the gate. There's a grass area, has a picnic bench and a little pathway that goes through, and it has plants as well, but there is some grass there. And we take our dog down there to, go to the bathroom on the way as we walk around the community. But, I kind of look at a lot of the grass that we were talking about today and what non-functional means. I kind of always give it the mom test. There's grass that you'll see, especially where I live, in a roundabout or in the little median going into the gated community. I am never going to let my kids play in those spots. It's just not going to happen. And I'm not walking my dog on those spots either. So just going back to the point Hillary made about, people have a lot of strong feelings about that, especially when it comes to their pets and having a place for them to go. But you have a good example of ways that, replacing that grass can still be beneficial to everybody who uses it.
Yeah. So in addition to replacing the grass at our entryway, we also have what we called the doggy park. It was a very small plot of grass right up against the roadway. The doggy bags were there, but it didn't meet the definition of functional grass. And in order for it to meet that definition, we would have had to cut it back 10 feet off of the road, make some other improvements to it, and it really would become a much smaller plot of grass and even less water efficient as a result of that. So as a community, we decided that we were going to take out that doggy park because we have another large turf area that really serves as our primary park area where the kids do go and kick the soccer ball and throw the baseball and all of that. But we converted that doggy park into a butterfly and pollinator sanctuary. So we are installing specific types of plants within that former grass area that will attract bees and butterflies and hummingbirds. And so trying to provide a little more benefit to not just the aesthetics of that area, but to the wildlife itself. And just inherently with water smart landscaping, the plants and the trees, it is a better habitat for that wildlife that we have. The lizards, the small mammals, all of those little critters that call Las Vegas home just like we do, that really this water smart landscaping does provide a better habitat and better benefit for that wildlife than grass does. You know, I should also just point out, and we didn't talk about it in this episode, but certainly our listeners can go back and listen to our episode Speak for the Trees, where we talk a lot about how to protect your trees that are in those grass areas that need to be converted. We had experts on from Star Nursery, and they were able to provide some good information there. Well, that's it for this episode here on Water Smarts. We hope you subscribe and listen next time. And you can always send us questions. You can reach us via email at watersmarts@snwa.com. That email address is watersmarts@snwa.com, or visit us on our website, snwa.com. You can get us through the contact page. You can also apply for the Water Smart Landscape Rebate Program there and see all of the resources that are available to you and your HOA as you get on the conservation bus and get that non-functional grass replaced. We hope you join us here next time on Water Smarts.